Admiral Vorth's 6 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he watched the small blue planet rotate slowly before his fleet. The Galaxian Empire had waited 3 cycles for this moment. Earth hung there like a ripe fruit, completely unaware that its destruction was about to begin. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion buzzed with activity. 300 of the Empire's finest warships stretched out in perfect formation, their black titanium hulls reflecting the distant light of Sol. Each vessel carried enough firepower to glass an entire continent. Together, they represented the most powerful invasion force the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Hyun, Vorth's voice rumbled through the bridge, his thick accent making the human name sound strange. Begin the ritual. Signal the primitive world. Commander Hyun, a seasoned officer whose scales bore the scars of 50 conquered worlds, nodded respectfully. His clawed fingers danced across the holographic interface as he activated the quantum communication array. The message that had terrified countless civilizations began broadcasting across all known frequencies. Attention, inhabitants of the 3rd planet. Hyun's translated voice echoed through space. You are now subjects of the mighty Galaxian Empire. Surrender unconditionally within 1 solar rotation or face complete annihilation. Resistance is futile. Your primitive technology cannot match our superior forces. The bridge crew waited in anticipation. Usually this moment brought panicked responses, desperate pleas for mercy or stunned silence. Some species tried to negotiate, others simply went quiet as their governments collapsed into chaos. But the humans surprised everyone. The response came quickly, crisp and clear through their communications array. The voice belonged to a human female speaking in perfect Galaxian dialect without a translator. Greetings, Admiral Vorth of the Eternal Dominion. This is Defense Coordinator Min Seo of Earth Command Central. We've been monitoring your approach for the past 3 standard weeks. Thank you for finally arriving. Sub-Commander Krex nearly dropped his plasma rifle. Admiral, they know your name. They know our ship designation. Vorth's mandibles twitched slightly, but he maintained his composure. Continue monitoring their transmissions, Hyun. Min Seo's voice continued, warm and almost friendly. We understand. You've come a very long way to visit our little world. However, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. You see, Admiral, we're not the ones who will be surrendering today. Please proceed to coordinate 779 by 442 for your formal surrender ceremony. Our reception committee is waiting. The bridge fell dead silent. In the vast expanse of space around them, the Galaxian fleet continued its slow advance toward Earth. But something had changed. The confidence that had filled the air moments before now felt heavy and uncertain. Tactical Officer Rand's voice cracked slightly as he reported, Admiral, long-range sensors show minimal defensive positions around the planet. A few orbital stations, maybe 50 small patrol craft, nothing that could threaten even our smallest destroyer. Vorth's laugh was meant to sound confident, but it came out forced. 800 years, Commander Hyun. 800 years of conquest across 7 galaxy sectors. Not once has a primitive species dared speak to the Empire with such insolence. Perhaps they don't understand our power, Admiral, suggested Sub-Commander Krex, his nervous energy making his voice higher than usual. But Vorth was studying the tactical display more carefully now. Something felt wrong. The human response had been too calm, too prepared. No species facing annihilation spoke with such confidence unless they had reason to believe they could survive. Hyun, scan their planet again. Full spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about their defensive capabilities. As the sensors worked, Vorth paced the bridge. His heavy footsteps echoed in the growing tension. The humans had known his name, his ship, their arrival time. That suggested intelligence-gathering capabilities, far beyond what their initial assessments had indicated. Admiral, reported scanner operator Vex, preliminary scans confirm minimal surface defenses. Their largest cities show typical infrastructure patterns, no sign of planetary shields or major weapons installations. Then they're bluffing, Vorth decided, his confidence returning. Humans are known for their emotional responses. This coordinator is probably trying to buy time while their governments panic. But deep down, something continued to nag at him. The human's voice had carried no fear, no desperation. If anything, she had sounded almost pleased to hear from them. "Open a direct channel," Vorth commanded. "I want to speak to this Minseo personally." The communication array crackled to life, and the human woman's voice filled the bridge again. "Hello again, Admiral. I was hoping we could chat before things get started. Human, I am Admiral Vorth of the Galaxian Empire. Your world now belongs to us. Surrender immediately, and your species will be granted the privilege of serving the Empire as laborers." "That's very generous," Minseo replied, and Vorth could swear he heard amusement in her voice. "But I'm afraid we must decline. You see, Admiral, we've been preparing for visitors like you for quite some time now. Earth isn't quite as defenseless as your scouts reported." Vorth's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. "Human arrogance will make your defeat all the more satisfying. The Galaxian fleet moved through the asteroid belt like a dark tide of destruction. Their massive ships pushed aside floating rocks and debris as if they owned the entire solar system." Admiral Vorth stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen, completely unaware that every move his fleet made was being carefully watched. Commander Zorax, a battle-hardened veteran with purple scales covering his massive frame, studied the tactical readings with growing amusement. His thick fingers traced the holographic display showing Earth's pathetic defenses. "Look at this, Admiral. They have maybe 12 orbital platforms around their planet, ancient-looking things too, and those patrol ships, I count 53 of them. My grandmother could defeat this defense grid with a cargo hauler." The other officers on the bridge shared his laughter. Sub-Commander Krex pointed at the display with his clawed hand. "Sir, our smallest destroyer carries more firepower than their entire fleet combined. This won't even be a battle. It'll be target practice." What they couldn't see were the quantum sensors hidden throughout the solar system. These devices were invisible to Galaxian technology, scattered like electronic dust across millions of miles of space. Every asteroid, every piece of floating debris, every seemingly empty patch of vacuum could be hiding human eyes and ears. Deep in the shadows behind Jupiter's massive form, Captain Teho floated in his stealth command ship. The vessel was completely dark, running on minimal power to avoid detection. Its hull was coated with special materials that absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them back. To the Galaxian fleet, this area of space appeared completely empty. Teho's ship was small compared to the alien warships, but it was packed with the most advanced technology humanity had ever created. His fingers danced across holographic controls that would have seemed like magic to people from just 50 years ago. Around him, his crew of 20 specialists worked in perfect silence, communicating through hand signals and text messages displayed on their screens. "Captain," whispered Communications Officer Jin Woo, his voice barely audible, "we're receiving confirmation signals from all hidden positions. Operation Mousetrap is ready to spring." Teho nodded and opened a secure channel that used quantum encryption. His message went out instantly to hundreds of other human commanders scattered throughout the solar system. Some were hiding behind Mars, others were camouflaged among the rocks of Saturn's rings, and many more were positioned in places the aliens would never think to look. "Phoenix Leader to all shadow units." Teho's voice was calm, but carried the weight of years of preparation. "The rats have entered the maze. Maintain radio silence. Keep your ships cold and dark. Let them walk deeper into our web." Meanwhile, on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, the Galaxians continued their advance with growing confidence. Their scanners showed nothing but empty space and the pitiful human defenses ahead. What they didn't realize was that their own technology was working against them. Their powerful sensors were designed to detect large energy signatures and active weapon systems. They completely missed the thousands of tiny, dormant devices that surrounded them. Back on Earth, 3 miles. Beneath the bustling streets of Seoul, Defense Coordinator Minseo stood in humanity's most secret facility. The underground command center was a marvel of engineering, carved out of solid rock and shielded against every known form of detection. The main tactical display filled an entire wall, showing the solar system in perfect detail. Every single alien ship appeared as a red dot on the screen. Beside each dot were numbers showing the vessel's exact position, speed, weapon status, and shield condition. The Galaxians had no idea that human technology had been quietly studying their empire for 3 decades. "Ma'am," reported Intelligence Officer Hye Jin from her station, "the alien fleet is maintaining standard formation. They're not even trying to scan for hidden threats. Their arrogance is exactly what we hoped for." Mincio smiled as she watched, the red dots moving deeper into human space. 30 years of preparation, she said quietly. 30 years of studying their tactics, their technology, their weaknesses. They think they're hunting sheep, but they're about to learn what happens when the sheep have been preparing for wolves. The command center buzzed with quiet activity. Hundreds of technicians monitored displays showing every aspect of the approaching battle. Some tracked the movement of hidden human ships. Others watched the energy signatures of weapons systems coming online, and many more coordinated with defense platforms scattered throughout the solar system. Lieutenant Commander Dong Hyun approached Min Seo with a tablet in his hands. "Coordinator, all stealth units are in position. The alien fleet will reach the trigger point in 17 minutes. Should we begin final preparations?" "Not yet," Min Seo replied, her eyes never leaving the main display. "Let them get comfortable. Let them think they're in control. The deeper they come into our system, the harder it will be for them to escape when the trap closes." Above them, the Galaxian fleet continued its approach, completely unaware that they were flying into the most sophisticated ambush in human history. Admiral Vorth and his officers congratulated themselves on their easy victory, while Captain Taeho and hundreds of other human commanders waited in the darkness like patient hunters. The stage was set for a battle that would change the galaxy forever. The moment Admiral Vorth's flagship crossed the invisible line marking Mars' orbital path, the entire solar system transformed into a battlefield. What had seemed like empty space just seconds before suddenly came alive with the deadliest light show the galaxy had ever witnessed. Captain Taeho watched from his hidden position as thousands of human stealth drones revealed themselves all at once. They had been floating motionless for hours, disguised as chunks of asteroid rock and metal debris. Now they dropped their camouflage like actors removing masks, their sleek metallic forms gleaming as they powered up their weapon systems. "All units, you are cleared to engage," Taeho spoke into his comm with deadly calm. "Remember, we've trained for this moment our entire lives. Show these invaders what happens when they threaten Earth." The first wave of attacks came from what the Galaxians had dismissed as floating garbage. Massive chunks of what looked like broken spacecraft suddenly split open, revealing hidden missile launchers and energy cannons. These weapons platforms had been drifting through space for months, perfectly mimicking the natural debris field that surrounded most star systems. Admiral Vorth's bridge erupted in chaos as his tactical officers tried to make sense of what their sensors were telling them. "Sir, we're reading massive energy spikes from every direction," shouted Scanner Operator Vex, his voice cracking with panic. "Those asteroids, they're not asteroids." But Vorth barely heard him. His attention was fixed on the main display, where red warning lights were flashing faster than he could count. Thousands of new contacts were appearing on his screen, surrounding his fleet like a closing fist. "Impossible!" Vorth roared, his 6 eyes wide with disbelief. "Our scouts surveyed this system for months. There was nothing here." His words were cut short as the first kinetic projectile slammed into his flagship's shields. The impact sent shockwaves through the massive vessel, throwing crew members to the deck. But this wasn't just any ordinary weapon. The tungsten rod had been fired from a magnetic rail system hidden inside what appeared to be a small moon. The projectile was traveling at nearly the speed of light, carrying enough kinetic energy to punch through a mountain. Commander Hyun's claws scraped across his control panel as he desperately tried to coordinate their defenses. "Admiral, our shields are down to 60% from just one hit. I'm detecting railgun signatures from at least 50 different locations. Around them, the Galaxian fleet was beginning to take serious damage. The destroyer, Void Render, exploded in a brilliant flash as 3 kinetic rounds struck it simultaneously. The cruiser, Dark Triumph, spun out of control, its engines destroyed by a swarm of human attack drones that had emerged from the shadow of a nearby asteroid. "Return fire," Vorth commanded. But his weapons officers were struggling to find targets. The human drones moved like schools of fish, weaving between the larger Galaxian ships with impossible precision. Every time the aliens tried to lock onto one group, another would appear from a different direction. Deep in Earth's command center, Min Seo watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The main tactical display showed her fleet of hidden weapons, systematically dismantling the alien invasion force. Excellent work, everyone. Phase 2 is proceeding exactly as planned. Lieutenant Commander Dong Hyun approached her station with an update. Ma'am, the kinetic bombardment is devastating their heavy cruisers. Their shield technology can handle energy weapons, but they're completely unprepared for physical impacts. At these speeds, this was the key to humanity's strategy. For 30 years, Earth scientists had studied captured alien technology and discovered its weakness. Galaxian shields could deflect plasma bolts and laser beams, but they were useless against solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. The aliens had never encountered an enemy that used pure kinetic energy as a weapon. Captain Taeho's voice echoed across all human communication channels as he coordinated the attack. Phoenix leader to all shadow units. Execute Protocol Hammer. I repeat, execute Protocol Hammer. Show them what Earth really looks like when it's angry. The command triggered the second phase of the human ambush. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, dozens of massive railgun platforms emerged from their camouflage. These weapons had been built inside hollowed-out asteroids, completely invisible to alien sensors. Now they revealed themselves and began firing continuously. The night sky around Mars lit up with streaks of light as tungsten rods accelerated to incredible speeds. Each projectile carried enough energy to level a city, and they were firing dozens of them every second. The Galaxian fleet, caught in the middle of this storm, began to fall apart. Admiral Vorth's flagship shuddered as another kinetic round struck its shields. The barrier field flickered and sparked before finally failing completely. "Shields are down," Commander Hyun reported, his voice filled with terror. "We're defenseless." But the humans weren't finished. From the shadows of Jupiter's moons, Captain Taeho's hidden fleet began to emerge. These weren't the small patrol craft the aliens had detected earlier. These were full-sized human warships, their hulls black as space itself, armed with weapons. The Galaxian Empire had never imagined. The trap was complete, and Earth's children were ready to defend their home. The Galaxian Empire had conquered 800 worlds using the same basic strategy. Their energy shields were legendary throughout the galaxy, capable of stopping the most powerful plasma cannons and particle beam weapons known to science. For 3 centuries, no enemy had found a way to break through their defensive barriers. Until today, Admiral Vorth watched in absolute horror as another of his massive dreadnoughts simply came apart like a broken toy. The tungsten rod that struck it was no bigger than a telephone pole, but it was moving at 97% the speed of light. When it hit the alien ship, the kinetic energy released was equivalent to a small nuclear explosion. "Our shields aren't even slowing them down," Commander Hyun screamed over the chaos on the bridge. His tactical display showed dozens of red warning lights as ship after ship in their fleet took catastrophic damage. "It's like shooting arrows at a charging rhinoceros." The problem was that Galaxian shield technology had been designed to handle energy-based attacks. When a plasma bolt hit their barriers, the energy was absorbed and redirected harmlessly into space. But these human weapons weren't using energy at all. They were using simple physics, accelerating solid metal rods to incredible speeds and letting momentum do the rest. Sub-Commander Krex was frantically working at his station, trying to understand what was happening. "Admiral, I'm analyzing the impact patterns. These aren't energy weapons. They're physical projectiles, but they're moving faster than anything we've ever encountered." Vorth's mandibles clicked nervously as he processed this information. "Impossible. No species has the technology to accelerate solid matter to such velocities. The power requirements alone would be astronomical, but the evidence was floating all around them in the form of destroyed alien warships. The humans had somehow solved the energy problem by building their railgun systems inside asteroids and connecting them to massive fusion reactors. Each hidden weapon platform had enough power to launch projectiles at near light speed continuously for hours. Captain Taeho smiled grimly as he watched the alien fleet falling apart on his tactical display. Engineering Officer Kyung-soo, how are our railguns performing? Better than expected, Captain, replied the young officer, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. The magnetic acceleration systems are operating at peak efficiency. We're maintaining a firing rate of 12 rounds per minute from each platform, and we have 47 platforms operational. The beauty of the human strategy was its simplicity. While other species focused on building bigger energy weapons and stronger shields, Earth's engineers had gone back to basics. They remembered that the universe's most fundamental force wasn't exotic energy or quantum manipulation. It was good old-fashioned momentum. Down in Earth's command center, Min Seo watched the battle with satisfaction. Her communication officers were monitoring alien transmissions, and what they heard confirmed that the Galaxian fleet was in complete panic. "Ma'am," reported Communications Officer Ginny, "we're intercepting desperate calls for reinforcements from the alien flagship. Admiral Vorth is demanding to know how we're penetrating their defenses." Min Seo activated the broad-spectrum communication array and spoke directly to the alien commander. Her voice was transmitted across all frequencies, ensuring that every surviving Galaxian ship could hear her clearly. "Admiral Vorth, this is Defense Coordinator Min Seo. You asked how we knew your weaknesses. The answer is simple. We've been listening to your Empire's communications for 37 years. The revelation hit the alien bridge like a physical blow." Commander Hyun's scales turned pale as he realized the implications. "Admiral, if they've been monitoring our transmissions, they know everything. Our ship designs, our tactical manuals, our defensive capabilities." Min Seo's voice continued, calm and educational. "Your Empire broadcasts on predictable frequencies using outdated encryption. We've been intercepting your military communications, studying your battle reports, analyzing your technology specs. You're not the first species to threaten Earth, Admiral. You're just the first to actually try it." The truth was even more devastating than the kinetic bombardment. Earth's intelligence services had been quietly observing the Galaxian Empire for decades, learning everything about their military doctrine. They knew exactly how Galaxian shields worked, what weapons the aliens preferred, and most importantly, what they had never encountered before. Another massive explosion lit up space as the battlecruiser Eternal Fury broke in half. The tungsten rod that destroyed it had been fired from a railgun hidden inside what appeared to be a small asteroid. The projectile punched through the ship's hull so fast that the alien crew never even knew they were under attack. 8 minutes, whispered. Tactical Officer ran as he stared at his chronometer. "In 8 minutes, we've lost over 200 ships." Admiral Vorth could barely comprehend what was happening. 3 centuries of Imperial military superiority were crumbling around him. The weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds were useless against an enemy that fought with rocks and metal rods, accelerated to impossible speeds. "All ships, emergency retreat," Vorth commanded, his voice cracking with desperation. "Full power to engines, get us out of this system." But even as the surviving Galaxian vessels tried to flee, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this too. Sleek pursuit craft emerged from hiding places throughout the solar system, their engines glowing bright blue as they moved to intercept the retreating aliens. The trap had worked perfectly, and Earth's children were just getting started. "Admiral." Vorth's escape pod spun helplessly through the debris field that had once been the pride of the Galaxian Empire. Behind him, his flagship, Eternal Dominion, was breaking apart in a spectacular display of fire and twisted metal. The massive dreadnought that had terrorized dozens of worlds was now just burning wreckage floating in the cold vacuum of space. Through the small viewport of his emergency pod, Vorth could see the remnants of his once mighty fleet. Pieces of destroyed warships drifted past like metallic snow, each fragment representing years of Imperial engineering and thousands of lives lost. Of the 300 vessels that had entered the Sol system with such confidence, barely 30 were limping away into the darkness. "Communications Officer Zan, are you receiving me?" Vorth spoke into his pod's emergency transmitter, his voice hoarse with shock and defeat. "Yes, Admiral," came the shaky reply from another escape pod somewhere in the debris field. "Emergency. Beacon is active. Rescue ships are en route from the outer rim." But Vorth wasn't thinking about rescue. His mind was focused on something far more important than his own survival. Zan, patch me through to Imperial Command immediately. Priority. Alpha classification. This message must reach every world in the Empire within the next 6 hours. As his pod's quantum transmitter connected to the Empire's vast communication network, Vorth began composing the most important message of his career. His hands trembled as he activated the recording system, knowing that his words would change the galaxy forever. This is Admiral Vorth of the 4th Imperial Fleet. Emergency transmission code Red 77 Alpha. Classification: Extreme Threat. The Sol system is hereby designated as forbidden territory for all Imperial vessels and personnel. He paused, watching another piece of his flagship drift past the viewport. The species known as humans are not the primitive civilization described in our intelligence reports. They are a highly advanced military power that has been preparing for our arrival for decades. Their defensive capabilities far exceed anything in our current tactical database. The message continued for several minutes as Vorth detailed the devastating human weapons, their stealth technology, and their apparent knowledge of Imperial tactics. When he finished, he added a final warning that would echo through alien civilizations for generations to come. The humans were ready. They were waiting. Do not underestimate them as we did. Within hours, Vorth's message was spreading through the galactic communication network like wildfire. On the trading world of Nexus Prime, alien merchants gathered around public broadcast screens, watching in disbelief as reports of the Calaxian defeat scrolled past. The empire that had seemed unstoppable for 3 centuries had been crushed in less than 10 minutes. On the military stronghold of Kepler Station, generals from a dozen different species studied tactical analyses of the human victory. The footage, captured by fleeing Calaxian ships, showed weapons technology that defied conventional military thinking. Railguns hidden in asteroids, stealth drones that could mimic space debris, and kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds. Commander Yex of the Andorian Republic watched the recordings with growing concern. Their tactical coordination is unlike anything we've encountered. Every human unit moved with perfect timing, as if they were all controlled by a single mind. But the most unsettling part of the reports wasn't the human weapons or their tactical skills. It was the evidence that they had been quietly preparing for galactic contact for decades. Intercepted communications showed that Earth's intelligence services had been monitoring alien civilizations, studying their weaknesses, and developing countermeasures. Back on Earth, Defense Coordinator Minseo stood in the observation deck of the Sol Command Center, watching the last of the alien escape pods disappear into hyperspace. The tactical display showed her solar system was clear of hostile contacts for the first time in 3 days. Her personal communicator crackled to life with Captain Tejo's voice. Coordinator, all pursuit craft are returning to base. We've collected samples from the alien wreckage for analysis. Should we continue monitoring their retreat? Negative, Captain, Minseo replied, a small smile playing across her face. Let them go. They'll carry our message better than any transmission we could. Send. Captain Tejo's response carried a note of curiosity. Do you think they'll be back? The Calaxians, I mean. Minseo looked at the holographic display showing the positions of her hidden fleet throughout the solar system. Thousands of stealth ships, weapon platforms, and sensor networks remained on full alert, ready to defend Earth against any threat. Not them, she said quietly. Admiral Vorth learned his lesson today, but others will hear about this battle. Some will be curious, some will be afraid, and some will be angry enough to try where the Calaxians failed. She turned away from the display and walked toward the communications center, where her staff was already monitoring alien networks across the galaxy. The news of Earth's victory was spreading faster than they had anticipated, generating reactions from species they had never heard of. The galaxy is a big place, Captain, Minseo continued, full of civilizations that think they're superior to everyone else. Today we taught one of them that humans don't make easy prey. Tomorrow we'll be ready for whoever comes next. In the depths of space, far beyond the orbit of Pluto, humanity's quantum sensors continued their silent watch. The network of detection. Devices that had tracked the Calaxian fleet's approach remained active, scanning for new threats among the stars. Earth's children had won their first galactic battle, but they knew it wouldn't be their last. The galaxy had learned a new truth. Today, humanity was no longer alone, and they were definitely not defenseless. The Yas End.